Okay, now I need to. Okay.
All right. So we are officially broadcasting live. So as I see people are joining, thank you for joining, everyone. And welcome to our Learning for Life webinar. Very excited to be here this evening. It is evening here in Tokyo, but we have panelists from around the world. So I will go ahead and get started. So again, welcome very much to the Learning for Life Voices 365 webinar hosted by the Global Summit. This is the fourth webinar in a series leading up to the Impact Games in August. So for more information about the Impact Games and how to get involved, please check out the Global Summit Facebook page or the Global Summit website. So, a little bit about the outline for our webinar. I will start with some introductions and ask the panelists to also introduce themselves. And then I will go through some questions for the panelists. And if we have time, we will do some Q&A, some question and answer. So again, I think we'll just give it another second as people join. And okay. So my name is Sonya Richards, and I am based in Tokyo, and I'm here with Carlos Hernandez as technical support. Thank you, Carlos. And I'm also here with 4 panelists who I will have introduce themselves in just a moment. So thank you very much to the Global Summit for having me as a guest moderator. And as you know, the topic for tonight's webinar is Learning for Life. So as I was preparing for tonight, I was trying to think of a good story to start us off and set the stage a little bit. And I was trained as a learning scientist. So I was taught to really look at the science behind how people learn. And as part of my training and my learning, we spent a lot of time having these class-wide debates vouching for approach A to learning versus approach B and which one's better and why this one was better than the other approach. And we spent so much time having these arguments. And I remember thinking, this is so silly, because really, shouldn't we just be trying to build like the best toolkit possible with the best tools from both approaches, from all of the approaches, and to really use, again, all of the tools available to help people learn something? And the other thing that I was thinking about is, beyond using the best approach to teach something, how do we know that that something is really the thing that's worth learning? So just some thoughts to get us started this evening. And without further ado, I would like the panelists to introduce themselves, and I'll start with the one geographically closest to me. So I'd like to start with Tomoko Yoshida. If you could unmute and introduce yourself. Tomoko is a senior instructor of Tenshin Taido here in Japan. So Tomoko, welcome, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and Tenshin Taido for those who are unfamiliar.
Okay, thank you, Sonya. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. And to introduce myself again, my name is Tomoko Mochizuki Yoshida, and I'm joining from Japan right now. And what I do is I'm a senior instructor of Kenbu Tenshin Ryu and Tenshin Taido, as Sonya just introduced me. And Kenbu and Tenshin Taido, it's a combination of the practice that I teach. And Kenbu is based on the art of the sword, and I actually have my sword here. I just wanted to give you an idea of what it means. So this is the sword that we usually use. It's imitation sword. It's not real sword. So it's a practice of the sword combined with a system of body movement called Tenshin Taido. And it was developed by Master Hiroyuki Aoki in the 60s. And Master Hiroyuki Aoki he was a very high-ranked karate practitioner and instructor, master actually. And he wanted to develop a kind of martial arts that would better benefit the people in this modern age. So what's interesting about Kenbu and Tenshin Taido is that it's based in martial arts, but the combat and the fighting aspect of martial arts has all been removed. And it's more to build a good communication, to connect with one another, connect with ourselves, and connect with our fellow practitioners that we practice together. And then also to connect with nature and the universe, the greater life force that we all come from and go back to. So that's the overall, the basic concept of Kenbu and Tenshin Taido. And at the time that Master Aoki created this, it was already, after wartime in Japan. So there's no point of fighting with each other anymore. So there's great emphasis on how we could soften our hearts to have compassion and feel each other, not just physically, but energetically, and to create something together from there. So that's the underlying philosophy in our practice. And the forms are applied to learn from the forms. For example, we try to, become one with the sword too. So become one with the sword, become one with ourselves, and becoming one with our practitioners and everything around us. So that's the core philosophy in our practice, and I'll talk more about it later on.
Great. Thank you so much, Tomoko-san. And now turning to our next panelist, we also have Buthaina Aburoza. Buthaina, could you please unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about your organization, Kutov, which does green vocational training. And Buthaina is joining us from Amman, Jordan.
Hello, everybody. I'm talking from Jordan. I'm Buthaina Aburoza. I'm the founder of Kutov Professional Development. We are specialized in vocational training in environment in general, and in waste management and recycling in specific. And we are the leader of change in our community for the behavior by our program, Environmental Behavior Leaders. We are going to talk about more. This is a small brief about me. I am a change maker, an entrepreneur who are working with the community to do the best for our community in the environment sector.
Great, thank you very much, Buthaina. And also from Jordan, we have Jana Abdua. She is a game developer and the co-founder of Sakuda Games, where she creates edutainment games. So Jana, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jana Al-Abdoud. I'm 14 years old from Jordan. I'm a Unity game developer and co-founder of Sakuda Games, where we develop edutainment games to make education more interactive and enjoyable. And I previously worked in many things. I started when I was 9, so I worked in dubbing, content making, and many other things. And I settled in game development right now.
Great, thank you very much, Jana. And now finally joining us from London, we have Ross Hall, the co-founder of the Weaving Lab, which is a global community aiming to advance the practice and profession of weaving learning ecosystems.
Thanks, Sonya, and hello, everyone. It's lovely to be with you today. My name is Ross Hall. I'm calling from London, and the focus of our work is to essentially help every school, every neighborhood, every network become a community within which everyone is learning to thrive together. So this is about liberating learning from just being schools. It's liberating learning from just being about the acquisition of knowledge and skills to something much deeper, much more profound, and much more urgently required.
Great. Thank you very much, Ross. And now we will just dive right into our questions. And my first question is for Jana. And Jana, you develop educational games as learning tools, and you started this work with the goal of making learning more fun, but also more useful. And when we spoke, you said learning is the most important weapon. And you mentioned that you see a real problem with the way schools currently prepare young people for the future. So could you tell us more about this, please?
So I think it's the most important weapon because learning is a major part of our lives. That's essential to human existence. The brain gets its power from information. People who continually learn earn more money than those who rely on a narrow set of skills and experiences. The more skills you have, the higher is your chance of survival and success. Learning more can help you to see things from different perspectives, which results in a better understanding of the world. That's why if you stop, you'll be left behind. And you should ensure you remain relevant to your industry by keeping up to date with trends and adapting your skill sets to function effectively among this rapidly changing world of technology. You have to learn new things to remain valuable. And about the way schools currently prepare young people for the future, the problem I noticed is that school doesn't teach you any practical skills. So when you graduate and actually go to the real world, you barely know anything about handling money, social skills, looking for a job, first aid, time management, laws, insurance, credit cards, and much more. So in the end, your knowledge of math and science alone won't get you a job. Also, for 12 years of your life, you have to take certain subjects, even if you won't use them in your future job. So for example, if becoming a programmer is what you want as a job, you won't need knowledge in history. Instead, you should be taught about logical thinking and algorithms. Even things as simple as conversation skills and email writing aren't taught in schools. When I started out as a journalist, I had no idea how to start a conversation or write a formal email. I'm not saying that math, science, or history shouldn't be taught in school, but the idea is that we shouldn't be studying the same subject for 12 years. If we make it so that in the first 5 years you learn all subjects, then you get to choose based on what you've learned, what you want to work as, and based on that, your subjects should get reconstructed. I also believe that the reason a lot of people have social anxiety is because we aren't taught about social skills, how to interact with people in school. So that's it.
Ross, moving to you, can you tell us a bit about how you see learning moving away from the current economic and individualistic focus, and a bit about what you already used the term liberating learning. So what does that mean to you?
Yeah, thanks, Sonia. It's really interesting hearing you talk, Jana. You know, you talk very eloquently about, for example, helping people find jobs. And that's clearly a really important thing for people to do. But you also talk about building that kind of relational skills, the ability to live and work with other people and to relate to other people. And I think those two pieces in many ways capture, for me at least, many of the ideas around liberating learning. Firstly, it's really interesting when you look at the purpose of schools everywhere. The practical purpose of schools is for many, many people just to get them into jobs. It's to kind of get them out the system, as Ken Robinson said, you know, through the factory and out into higher education and maybe into jobs. And while jobs are clearly really important, I think equally important is the idea of economic well-being. So not just any jobs, but jobs which are actually contributing to our collective well-being, I think. Plus, of course, a lot of jobs that currently exist will not exist when young people in school today graduate. So there's this idea of needing to invent work and to invent meaningful, purposeful, thriving work. So that's part of it. I think this sense that we need to get away from just serving the old economic system, which we know has created so many problems in the world, environmental, social, and personal problems. We need to essentially reinvent our economic systems so that we are thriving together. And I'll come back to that a bit later, I think. So we need, in my opinion, learning which is focused on thriving, which includes economic thriving, but is not limited to just finding work. So the other piece that you said, Jana, was, you know, this idea of developing relational skills, being positive with people. Again, we know this is essential to economic well-being, but it's also essential to social well-being and to personal well-being. So we need to now start to say, well, if we need to essentially therefore liberate learning from just this highly individualistic and economic purpose, which is found in most schools, to essentially being about the development of the whole human being thriving. And that means developing a whole set of qualities in people which help them to thrive. This is about developing knowledge, it's about developing skills, but it's equally about developing our ability and our inclination to collaborate, to cooperate. So we need to develop empathy and compassion, which requires self-awareness and self-regulation. It requires creativity and imagination, future thinking, reflectivity, thoughtfulness, wisdom, and on and on. So there's this whole set of human qualities that we know are essential to our collective thriving that we're not focusing on in schools. And I think this is what I mean essentially by liberating learning, so that we have a much broader focus on the whole human being and a much broader focus on the whole community in and around the school, empowering the whole human being to live for the whole world.
So taking the same idea of looking at the whole individual, I'd like to turn to you, Tomoko, because I know your work as an instructor really focuses on integrating the body with the mind and the heart and consciousness and expression. So can you share more about this, and for those who aren't familiar and haven't practiced, what this really feels like and looks like in terms of the work you do?
Sonya, and Ross, thank you for mentioning about different ways of learning, not just in the knowledge, but as a whole being. It really does relate to Tenshin title Kenbu practice. In Kenbu, a lot, because it's a physical practice, a lot of the learning comes through the body, inevitably. So it doesn't come as just like a chunk of knowledge, but it becomes more of an embodied practice. And I just wanted to give you an example of this exercise that we do. And so we do a lot of physical exercises to prepare to do the forms. And one exercise that we have is, it looks like a really intense frog jump. So it's a frog jump that doesn't just go up, but it moves up and forward. And you come down all the way down to the ground, and then you open up with your hands raised up high like this, and open your chest and your whole body, and you keep on doing this jump. And when I was about like 17 years old, that was about like 20 years ago, I attended this retreat, and we would do this jump outside on the beach along the seashore for about an hour. So just doing this once is hard enough, but you just keep on going and going and going with this jump. And so I was doing the jump, and the rule is that we can't stop. Once the instructor says go, we just keep on going. And even if we reach our physical limits, we just keep on going and going and going. And in this process, there's so much that, that we learn, because there's so many emotions that come up, like this feeling of struggle, not being able to jump anymore, or not being able to do like a beautiful jump, and kind of like regretting that I started this. And then like tears would come out and all emotions, and that gets released after a while. And I would keep on jumping and jumping and jumping. And with that kind of emotional release comes this feeling of liberation. And little by little, the more it goes out, the more the things that I've kept in my body, including preconceptions or perspectives, you know, and what I like and what I don't like, or what's good and what's bad, all these ways of thinking and distinctions, everything just like falls out by losing the strength or this physical ability. And the more I became empty, the more I felt like I could be everything. It kind of contradicts the word. The more I became nothing, the more I became everything. And then it just felt like I could jump forever and ever to the horizon. And I'm losing all the strength, but my senses were getting so much wider. I could feel so much. And I could also feel the people behind me or in front of me, and also could really feel the waves and the breeze so clearly and vividly. So the more I dropped the idea of doing something, there was so much that came into me so naturally, and it was effortless. And then in the end, with that kind of emptiness, the instructor said, okay, we could stop and let's just sit down on the sand and close with this final meditation. And when I dropped down onto the sand, I could really feel that I'm just a part of this wider nature and the universe, and a part of this sand that I'm sitting on, and a part of the waves that's just moving in front of me ceaselessly. So that kind of oneness with something greater than ourselves, and this connection to life itself, it just comes through the body and through the mind and through the spirit and everything together as a whole. So it really couldn't be separated at that moment. And that's, I think a lot of people have experienced this kind of like state of being like, maybe like being in the zone, or this flow state after doing one thing for quite a long while. And so once we develop this kind of feeling or state of being inside us, we could apply that in our daily lives whenever we're working on something, just dropping our minds and dropping everything that we already have, but looking at things from in a new light, or accepting things as the way it really is, just as is. And so even with, and it doesn't have to be this jump. It doesn't have to be as intense as a jump. And so once we have this feeling, we could just do a sequence of movements, and just keep on doing that, and feeling the oneness with the sword, or having this connection with the partner, as if the weapon or the person is not something so detached from you. It's not something that's the other to you, but as something that's connected, as a part of you and each other.
I think that's a really perfect time to transition from what you just described, Tomoko, this not only whole person connecting to these other parts of ourselves and being open to new ways of thinking, to turn to you, Buthaina, because I know your work is in green vocational training, and a lot of what you do has to do with not only the mechanics of green vocational training, but also the other elements that a person needs in order to work in this field. So could you tell us a bit about how you do that in your work? Buthaina, you are still muted. If you could unmute yourself. There.
I'm inspired from my colleague talks. And she's missing. She's touching something that we are working on it. That learning is a dynamic connection between yourself and between the others and between your community and your environment also. So, and this is what we have, we have found that during our vocational training, giving the young people, giving them the skills and the technical skills, that we found that the main barrier for what we are facing with them are that their self-awareness, their confident, their more belief. So from there we have start working as we are first, before giving them the technical skills that we are going to build with them and to invest in their selves first, so we can start making the change we are all want to do. And this is what we are facing in the environment sector, that all of us are seeing the problem, and all of us are feeling frustrated and want to do something, but nothing is done. And from there we have started that and take this belief from our and start working with it with all the people we are working with, especially with the youth, that better to light a candle than to Christ darkness. So we have to start first from ourselves, to build ourselves, to build our belief, to build our connection with others, with our environment, and then we can start working in doing the change we want to do. And from there we have start building their confidence, their self belief more, to believe that they can make the change from building their self confidence. And this was the start our program, especially for the environmental behavior leaders, because we want to make the youth and the next generation feel that they can do the change, and they can also better their life, and also they can build themselves also during the whole their whole life also. And this is the whole thing we have start working on it.
What you mentioned there at the end, especially of helping and making sure that the learners feel capable and feel like they are able to step in and try something new. That brings me back to you, Jana, because I know that one of your projects is a game to help build people's mechanical skills for repairing cars. And I know that you've done something very strategic in terms of who you've cast as the main character in this game. And could you just tell me, I think this is a great example of having to change the way, or changing the way that my preset thoughts about something, changing what those preset thoughts might be in order to be open to learning something new, which can be so important for learning. So Jana, could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Sure. So this game, it's called Car Girl Garage. It aims to teach women in a friendly and relaxed way about basic car DIY that's applicable to real-life situations. Its main protagonist is a young woman who inherited her grandfather's garage, and she wants to restore it to its former glory. As the player, you have to help her fix customer cars and fix the workshop. We want to encourage and support the idea of women starting their own garage. This is one of the industries that are men-dominated. Many women feel uncomfortable going to male mechanics because they fear being overcharged. A study by Northwestern University shows that women do tend to pay more than men for auto repairs, especially if they have little or no knowledge of cars. Also, we like to add a variety of races. The first customer at our garage is an African American woman, because we believe that Black lives matter, all lives matter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jana. Turning back to this idea of mutually beneficial learning, because wanting everyone to thrive and everyone benefiting from collective well-being, I'd like to come back to you, Ross, and talk about your work weaving learning ecosystems. And can you just help us understand a bit more about how a learning ecosystem supports collective well-being?
Yeah, sure. By the way, Jana, that game sounds fantastic. I mean, what a super example of this idea of liberating learning from the school. That you can learn that anywhere, and it's gamified, so learning becomes fun. I mean, it's a brilliant example of liberating learning, I think. And I think it's also a really interesting example of how, if you think of learning happening always everywhere, that we can liberate learning from just being about schooling. And I think this is really helpful. And by the way, I'm a big believer in schools. I'm just not a great believer in the traditional way of schooling. I think schools have a really important role to play in their communities, but perhaps not just as providers of knowledge, perhaps as facilitators of learning throughout the whole community. So imagine the neighborhood where any one of you lives, and imagine having a school there which is totally open to everyone in that neighborhood, in your neighborhood, young people and old people. And imagine the school's not just about giving knowledge, but it's about helping you and everyone in your community to become a learner who is learning to thrive together. So the whole purpose of learning that is facilitated by the school and happening everywhere in the community is about everyone thriving together. And I think if you start to imagine that kind of scenario, you start to imagine, first of all, the idea that everyone is learning together. So learning becomes a social thing as much as an individual thing. And we're learning to take care of ourselves holistically. We're learning to take care of each other as a community. And we're learning to take care of the whole planet. That means the rest of our species and other species, and the soil and the water and the air, so that we're actually seeing ourselves as a community in the world. And in fact, myself in that learning ecosystem can see myself, is aware of myself as an individual holistically, in the community holistically, in the world holistically. And I'm learning to develop the agency that I need. So to Buthaina's point, I'm developing an understanding of how I affect myself and my community and the world. And I'm learning, therefore, to act and choose from moment to moment to care for myself and our community and the world. This is the idea of a learning ecosystem in which everyone is learning to thrive together.
Tomoko, I'd like to come back to your work as a Kenbu Tenshin Taido instructor, and you've already given us such a beautiful example of how one of the exercises really translates to life in the real world outside of the practice. But I'm just curious if you have maybe another example that you feel relates to this conversation about liberating learning that you would like to share.
Thank you, Sonya. I really feel that the dojo, the studio for our practice itself it's a place to learn how to thrive together as a community. And in the process, we not only develop ourselves, but we help each other to grow. and we help the community to grow, and we help the dojo itself, this whole environment, to grow. And so there's a lot of partner exercises in Kembu, and there's actually a lot of group exercises with more than 2 people, like 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, doing something together and working in harmony. But in the partner exercise that we do, it's all based in how to grow with each other, how to help each other. So for example, so there's usually the attacker and the receiver of the attack. So one would maybe do a punch like this, and the receiver would try to receive the attack. And we don't use the word defend or block, because we're starting at a point where we've already gone beyond fighting and winning or losing and those kind of things. It's more to, so the attacker attacks with their whole existence, like their whole mind and body and spirit. You put everything in the attack. And that's how the attacker shows respect to the receiver. And so the receiver receives that fully by receiving the punch, and with the intention of bringing each other to the next level of understanding. So it's not a block, it's not a, I don't want you, but it's more of inviting the other and growing together. And with the role that the receiver would do to the attacker, it's with the intention to make the attacker feel very nice after being rolled. So roll that person in a very gentle way, using that person's energy with really nice flow, and afterwards that person would become happier than before he or she gave a punch. So it's that kind of mutually benefiting each other. And to make that happen, both sides have to be doing it wholeheartedly. There's no compromise there. So you express everything that you have, both sides. And it's like one soul and one soul meeting each other and melting together to create this new thing, this new level of understanding or new world that's mutually beneficial. So it's a process of collaboration and co-creation, and it keeps developing and developing because our ideas and our images and our dreams are infinite. So those things can be embodied in the movement or whatever form that we practice.
I really love this idea of collaborative learning and this back and forth and play between both sides, and then both sides coming out better as a result, and maybe stronger and more whole as a result. And I think this idea of learning from each other is also really connected to your work, Buthaina, about how you not only are training individuals, but a key facet is helping those individuals also go out and have conversations with others about conservation. So if you could just tell us a little bit more about how you focus on that part of your work. And please make sure you're unmuted and speak up so we can see your video right away from the beginning. So Buthaina, if you could tell us more about your work in that sense.
I'm totally agree with my colleague and what they said, and also changing the inner attitude of our mind can change the outer aspect of our life. So from there we start also with the youth, and starting working with them in the concept of changing behavior. What we need to conserve our environment, that changing our behavior as a human with dealing with the environment. So from there we have to start working with them and changing the behavior. Changing the behavior is usually it have 5 steps to do with it. First, that you were denying the problem. You don't know about it. You don't know anything that is a problem outside or something happening there. And the second step, it will be that you have to be more aware about what's happening there, and the third one to get the knowledge of the information, and then to take the action. And this is what we have start working with the youth. First, we are targeting the youth in the universities, and to give them, let's say, in the MAKES, makes, the first step is awakening your inner leadership, your inner beliefs. Then you can gain the information you want to know, and then you have to understand what's happening around you and the challenges we have there, and then to take the action, and to take the action, combining it with the knowledge you have get. Not only to take the action without have any knowledge based on it. So you have to start working on making the change with others, and with connecting with others. And after we have given them we have worked with the youth in the university in the three components. The first one is to give them the information and the knowledge about the environment, the challenging we have, and especially with the waste management, and how and why we should do the recycling and everything. And the second component was to work with them in building their leadership skills, and the critical thinking, problem solving, and every these soft skills they will need it while they are going through their own life, not only for making the change also. And then we give them also the tools how they can transfer the knowledge they have in a different way, in different tools, by let's say music, drama, anything they can do to transfer the knowledge they have for the school student. So we have, and from there we have connect the university student with the school students, so they can make this conversation together, and they can have union the beliefs of their own, and of the change they want to see in the community, and they start working on it, and make the action for it also. And from there we have seeing that when you give them the self-confidence, and when you give them the knowledge, and also when you support them in that they can make the change, they can start connection with others and making these let's say collaboration with others, and they can start feeling the environment in another way. It's not as to do a study or something, or a lecture. No, it's something that you have to build the connections between you and between the others, and between the environment, and start making the better for all of us and for our environment.
Great, thank you so much, Buthaina. And I love the example, or how you mentioned that students are open to use music or drama to help communicate these conservation efforts in a way that maybe is meaningful for them, and also opens up the streams of communication with others. So that's a really beautiful way that you do that. And so we have about 15 more minutes. So we have a couple more questions that we could go to, but I would like to also invite the panelists to, if there's something that you felt we touched on, but you want to return to or dive in a little deeper, I think we can take a few minutes now to do that. So is there anyone who would like to do that? If not, I will go to my next question, or we can also take questions from the attendees. Anything? Yeah, go ahead, Ross.
The only thing I would, that's playing on my mind, I mean, it's really interesting to, we've never met before. It's very interesting to feel those connections between our work and that kind of common direction. And I think I would just be interested to draw attention to that common direction. So in some ways you could say, oh, we're all doing really different things, and where are the connections? I think somebody might think that, but actually my feeling is that there is this common direction, which is to move us towards what we might think of as a better world, or a thriving world, where we can understand these interconnections and interdependencies between our inner selves and each other, and the universe, to Tomoko's words. And it feels that my sense is that if we can all just keep that in our minds, then we will continue to move in the same direction and not get stuck or drawn back into the old meaning of education and schooling.
Great, thank you. Was there another panelist who wanted to touch on that? Or, I mean, that was definitely a thought I had when preparing, as I spoke with each of you individually, and it was like, you come from different fields, but I saw some of the connections between your work. And actually that brings me to, we have a question from the audience that they're just asking, what drives you? Let me make sure I don't read it incorrectly. It's what inspires you to focus on education in your projects? So, and if anyone would like to start with that, then we can answer that question first.
I can start with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Focusing on education is very important, because the first thing you will do in your life from the since you're born is to learn, and you will continue learning through all your life. So it's the most important step in your life is learning and education. If you get the proper education, it will help you to build yourself in another way. If you get a poor education, it will affect your personality and your life also. So the education, it's most important step in our life, and we are start learning from the day one of our birth to until we leave this universe. So it's very important. Because of that, I have get there, because if you want to make the change, you have to start from learning and education. If you have to do anything in your life, you have to start from that point. And this is why we get, for me, why I started from education. To make the change in my community, in my country, it's have to start from the education.
Great, thank you, Buthaina, for stepping in and answering that question. And we have another question from the audience that I think is also interesting. And they say, how can we turn these wonderful ideas into a social business? And in connection with that question, I would ask, what advice would you have for someone who is looking to maybe begin an organization connected to learning or to work in their communities on project related to learning? Because, yeah, so if you have some advice for our attendees on those topics, would anyone like to?
I would.
Okay.
Well, actually, I think working in education and my field, like gamifying education, it's a pretty tough path. So if you want to work with it, you have to keep working and never give up, because no one's going to believe in you. Everyone thinks that the traditional education is better. We have been working with the traditional education for hundreds of years. So no one will be just willing to say, yeah, we can make a new way to learn. We can learn by educational games right now, because we are used to learning with by using the traditional methods. So if you want to do a project on learning, you should keep believing in yourself and never give up on your dream. Set your goals and start right now.
Thank you, Jan. And I remember.
I would like also to add something, sorry.
Great, please go ahead, Buthaina.
Yeah, what Jana said, I totally agree with her that, yes, it's not an easy thing to do, to work in the education initiative or project or something. You are changing how people are saying the word, or how people are acting with others. So the most important thing, yes, it's very important to have this confidence in yourself, and to keep your dream and work on it. Despite anything you will face, it's not an easy thing to do, yes. And also there's very important things is empathy. It's the sense of feeling others and what they are thinking of. So you can keep this empathy with others and keep this connection with others. So when you are going to work with in education and going to work with the community, you have to think in what they are thinking of, not what you want to see only. It's as I said before, it's a dynamic connection together. We have to all to work together. So you have to keep this in your mind through your work.
Great, thank you very much. And we
Just
have
to say, Sonia, sorry, I was a bit delayed there. Yeah, just I would also say, you know, one of the, as I've worked with a lot of people who started social enterprises and businesses in education, and it seems to me that those who are most successful always maintain a beginner's mind. So they're always themselves learning. They never get fixed on a single idea and believe that it will absolutely work. So my other piece of advice would be to always hold a beginner's mind.
Great, thank you. And that actually reminds me of the conversation I had with you, Jana, because you actually mentioned that if we learn of a better way to do something, then we should pursue that and go in that direction. And so I think that ties into not being fixed on our current ideas of how to do things, which to me relates to what you talked about, Tomoko, with being open and emptying maybe our own preset ideas so we can think of new approaches to things. So we have a little bit of time left, but I am just curious as we close if there are any closing call to actions that you would want to share with our attendees, and any closing words from each of you would be great now. Anyone like to start?
Yeah.
Yes, Buthaina.
Yes.
We can't see you. It would be great to see your face if possible.
Yeah. It was great that from this webinar and from our talks that we are from different countries, from different culture, but we have the same passion. We have the same way of thinking. And this is what we have to keep always working on it. Wherever you are doing, you will find your way to have a new way of making this learning process more easier for others, because you are thinking of it. So you can start always working on that on yourself and build what you are believing on it, and using any technology or using any tools that can make this easier for the others. So we can all together feel that already we are all together, are now connected in this global network, but also that we are all sharing the same passion, the same problem in different way, and also we are all have to be more open for others and more open to do more and work hardly more.
Great, there you are. And now we can see you again. So perfect to get those closing words from you. Thank you, Buthaina.
I have some closing words.
Great, thank you, Anna.
It was really great to talk to all of you and meet all of you. It's really interesting to see different projects from all around the world. And well, about this lockdown, it encouraged us to think about many things. This makes us stop and rethink the way we actually work right now. It made us partly abandon transportation and offices. We have to think seriously about looking for new jobs to fill in the place of the number of the jobs we'll lose in the future. And I think we must invest in the money we use for wars to support medical research and healthcare. And once again, it was really great talking to all of you.
Yeah, that's kind of nice to know.
Great, thank you very much. And just to be wary of muting, because we don't want picking up any other signals. So I see, Tomoko, I see that you're unmuted. Love to hear from you.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for such an inspiring conversation. And yeah, I was thinking that we're really at this like pivotal time in the history of humanity with what's going on in the world. And for me, it was a time to go back to the basic human qualities too, like to find value in the most basic part of human life. And with whatever we do, or regardless of what field we are in, I really feel like everyone shared today to accept each other and to really feel the connection, and not like intentionally, but just be in that connection all the time. And if we know that we're interconnected, there's no way that we can harm each other or create war against one another, because the other person is a part of yourself. So just to really know that we are one and we come from the same source. So that's why we, forgiveness and having compassion towards each other, and respecting each other's lives and different points of views, and also not judging each other by what's wrong or what's good, but to accept the multiple ways in which we can think or in which we can live. Just these things were these real basic values. I think it's a time to really come back to that. And even through this conversation today, I really felt like we are all sharing this common principle and value. So thank you to everyone.
And thank you, Tomoko, for reminding us of that. And thanks everyone for the time today. Just to build on Tomoko's words, it seems to me that if we accept that we are all wholly interdependent, then, and if we want to change education systems, then what we need to do is we need to become a better system. We need to see that we are the education system. It's not something that we should be changing out there, but it starts in here. And I think what my strong feeling is in this call is that we are all trying to model a new kind of education system so that together we can become a new kind of learning system, perhaps, and therefore become a better, thriving world.
Great. Thank you, Tomoko, and thank you, Ross, for closing us out, those closing statements. And we have reached the end of our webinar, but again, thank you so much to all of you, to Buthaina, to Jana, to Tomoko, and to Ross. It was such a pleasure to take time and reflect on learning. And I think one thing that I really take away from this conversation, and something I've believed for a long time, is that learning experiences are happening all day, throughout the day, and they're small, and they build on top of each other, and they're connected. And I think this is something that we've also seen in this conversation. So again, thank you so much for joining. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of the questions that were asked, but I think we got most of them in, and that's it. So thank you again for joining. If there's no more closing thoughts, then we will sign off. And again, thank you for spending your time with us this evening, this day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi. So I just end this and that's it.
Yes. Is there a way to go back to a panel room, Carlos?
Oh. I think we have to do that again, I think. Yeah. Well, let me.
If possible. Hello to everyone still with us.
No, I think we have to do it again.
Okay, no problem. For the one for.
Oh, but Melanie's calling me. Let me.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and sign
Hello?
off. Thank you very much, Carlos.